Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. What a beautiful gathering. We thank our Lord for the privilege and the invitation to do so. He instructs us to gather, and there's nothing really, there's nothing better than God's children coming together to praise Him. It's beautiful. Thank you, Lord. A reminder of our creed. I'm sure most people online, and certainly everybody here, is familiar with it now. So I'll just refer you to the Shema, Deuteronomy 6, 1 to 19, Mark 12, verses 28 to 31, Matthew 22, verses 34 to 40, and 1 Corinthians 13. If you read those sections of the Bible, you've got the creed of Almond House, which is basically the creed of the Bible. Okay, so today we're on Pasha Re'eh, which means see or behold or look at, all those similar kind of meanings. But before we go into the Pasha, let's have a preview of what we're going to read today, of what the Pasha is about. Moses calls on each of the people in the assembly to Re'eh, to behold, to see, that there are two separate outcomes that Israel could encounter upon their entering the land. And they are about to enter the land. They're on the very edge, they're on the verge of entering in. They have the blessings of obedience and the consequences for non-obedience. The blessing, a barakah, and the curse, kalalah. A blessing if you follow God's ways, but a curse if you turn to idolatry and forsake the ways of the Lord. Later on, a ceremony will be held between the mountains of Gerizim and Ebal, very close proximity in Shechem, which is one of those strategic places in the Bible, Shechem, which we'll touch on further on in the Parsha. But this ceremony will be held on these mountains of Gerizim and Ebal, during which the consequences of the blessings and the curse will be pronounced. It's performed as a live demonstration. The Israelites will be on both mountains, half the tribes on one and half the tribes on the other. And because of the natural contour of the land, the landscape formed a natural amphitheatre. So here the tribes would shout the blessings and the curses toward each other, separated by a chasm. It's an indication of the duality of right and wrong, of good and bad, of light and darkness, basically of blessings and curses, ultimately of life and death. Next in the Parsha, we read about the laws regarding false prophets who come and entice the nation to worship false gods and to go astray from their covenant with our God. Then we read of tithing, the year of release, how we are to be generous to others, especially those in need. And then the Parsha concludes with guidelines for the observance of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Shavuot and Sukkot. So that's the preview to today's Parsha. And for a little Hebrew insight for as I said, in its most basic form, it means look or see or look at, behold. And you will see the different translations of that. It'd be one of those. And any Parsha that we read, the title is always taken from one of the first words in the Parsha. And this today is the first word. Re'eh is the first word in the Parsha. This Re'eh, its root word is Ra. It's spelt exactly the same, but it's pronounced differently because it has dots and dashes in certain places along the word, which gives it a different inflection. But the word Re'eh comes from the word Ra, which means to see, to behold, to perceive, to look at, to inquire, to pay close attention, or to carefully consider. All those subtle meanings, close meanings. And we know through scriptures, and we hear it over and over, how important it is to shema, to hear and to listen. But now we're instructed to behold, to ra in this parsha now. And interestingly, Moses is addressing that the whole of Israel here, probably 2 million at least people. And yet here, although he's addressing everybody, he suddenly uses the second person singular form of you. So it's the singular you. He's not saying yous, he's saying you, like individually. Because if he was going to use the plural you to address everybody, he would have said reyu. But he says rei. Now there's something significant in that and why he does that. And we'll come back to that. So Parsha rei, what we're going to see now is how God sees, how we see, what to see and what not to see, and the different ways of seeing. Okay, so we begin on chapter 11, 26, Deuteronomy, Devarim, and this parsha goes all the way through to chapter 16, verse 17. So we're starting on chapter 11, verse 26, and what I'll do is, it's near the end of the chapter here, so I'll flow through and read all of the remainder of chapter 11, and then all of chapter 12. Okay? Behold, I set before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you today. And the curse, if you do not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside from the way which I command you today, to go after other gods which you have not known. Now it shall be, when the Lord your God has brought you into the land which you go to possess, that you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan, toward the setting sun, in the land of the Canaanites, who dwell in the plain opposite Gilgal, beside the terebinth trees of Moreh? For you will cross over the Jordan and go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you, and you will possess it and dwell in it. And you should be careful to observe all the statutes and judgments which I set before you today. And into chapter 12. These are the statutes and judgments which you shall be careful to observe in the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving you to possess all the days that you live on the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you shall dispossess served their gods, on the high mountains, and on the hills, and under every green tree. And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, and burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods, and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things. But you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses, out of all your tribes, to put his name for his dwelling place. And there you shall go. There you shall take your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, your vowed offerings, your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. And there you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all to which you have put your hand, you and your households, in which the Lord your God has blessed you. You shall not at all do as we are doing here today, every man doing whatever is right in his own eyes. For as yet you have not come to the rest and the inheritance which the Lord your God is giving you. But when you cross over the Jordan and dwell in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to inherit, and he gives you rest from all your enemies round about, so that you dwell in safety, then there will be the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide. There you shall bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, and all your choice offerings which you vow to the Lord. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your sons and your daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion or inheritance with you. Take heed to yourself that you do not offer your burnt offerings in every place that you see, but in the place which the Lord chooses, in one of your tribes. There you shall offer your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I command you. However, you may slaughter and eat meat desires, according to the blessing of God which he has given you. The unclean and the clean of the and the deer alike. Only you shall not eat the pour it on the earth like water. You may not eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, or your new wine, or your oil, of the firstborn of your herd or your flock. of any of your offerings which you vow, of your freewill offerings, or of the heave offering of your hand. But you must eat them before the Lord your God in the place which the Lord your God chooses, you and your son and your daughter, your male servants and your female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God in all to which you put your hands. Take heed to yourself that you do not forsake the Levite as long as you live in your land. When the Lord your God enlarges your border, as he has promised you, and you say, let me eat meat, because you long to eat meat, you may eat as much meat as your heart desires. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far from you, then you may slaughter from your herd and from your flock which the Lord has given you, just as I have commanded you, and you may eat within your gates as much as your heart desires. Just as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so you may eat them. The unclean and clean alike may eat them. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life. You may not eat the life with the meat. You shall not eat it. You shall pour it on the earth like water. You shall not eat it, that it may go well with you and your children after you, when you do what is right in the sight of the Lord. Only the holy things which you have, and your vowed offerings, you shall take and go to the place which the Lord chooses. And you shall offer your burnt offerings, the meat and the blood, on the altar of the Lord your God. And the blood of your sacrifices shall be poured out on the altar of the Lord your God, and you shall eat the meat. Observe and obey all these words which I command you, that it may go well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you displace them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. If we go to the previous chapter there where we began, verse 26, Moses says, Re'eh. Now the first mention of this, the root word ra, see or behold, is in right back in Genesis, it's 1:4. It says, and God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. That's its first mention. When we see through his eyes, we can distinguish between light and dark, from good and bad, from blessings and curses. It's our mission to learn to see how Yeshua sees. To this endeavour, a good prayer for us all would be Psalm 119:18. Open my eyes that I may see, wondrous things from your law. And we know in life that what is unseen is nearly always more important and more real than what is seen. You know, we can't see breath, but that's why we're alive. We can't see wind, but it bends trees. We can't see love, but we feel it. We can't see God, but we love him and worship him. And we've all heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Right? We all know that one. And it's one of those, you know, and you think you've got it, and we still don't fully practice it, you know. Well, that may be just me. Because I think, yeah, and of course, you don't judge a book by its cover. And then I might say something, what's going on here? And then I get a surprise, like, wow, this person turned out to be the best employee in the workplace, you know. And to look at them, you wouldn't think that, you know. So personally, I'm always still working on that one. But the truth is, you don't judge a book by its cover. And the cover, the outside of that book, it might appear dull, you know. It might appear weathered or plain. It might even look ugly to you. But inside that book, it can be full of knowledge and wisdom and poetry. even like beautiful colours, you know. Sometimes you might see someone in the same light as you see that book cover. You know, I certainly have, I admit. You know, they may look dull or weathered or just plain, and yet inside, which is what God looks at. That's what God looks at, the inside. There's kindness and there's mercy in that person, you know. There's patience and compassion. There's wisdom. There's empathy and sympathy. Even beautiful colours. Even beautiful colours. 1 Samuel 16, the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So we have to learn to see as he does. This is our goal. We have to see the bigger picture. We have to see the heavenly, the unseen, not just the earthly and the physically visible. And if we seek him and we ask him, Yeshua, he will do it for us. He opens our ears. He opens our ears to Shema, and he will open our eyes to Ra. He opens eyes. Our Lord Yeshua opens eyes, even the eyes of the blind. If we earnestly ask him, he will open ours to see like him. Yeshua sees in the past and the present and the future. You know, everything we see is just here and now. Yeshua sees in the past, the present and the future. Yeshua sees beauty and potential. He sees the soul, he sees the spirit, he sees the truth. He sees the truth. He's not deceived. Our eyes can deceive us because of our hearts. If we re'eh, as Yeshua does, we will see beautiful colours. We'll see rainbows and prisms. We'll be able to see with kaleidoscopic eyes. Now I know it sounds like hyperbole, but I really mean it. There's things also that we do not want to see. We ought not to see. Don't go and see, you know. 1 Samuel 16. But the Lord said to Samuel, don't look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I've refused him. For the Lord doesn't see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Once again, let's judge a book by its cover, by outward appearances. Matthew 5. But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. We don't want to see and covet, we don't want to see and lust. Psalm 101. I will set nothing worthless or nothing wicked before my eyes. We don't want to knowingly look at anything that's profane. Still on verse 26 here, I mentioned how Moses used the singular you, although he's addressing the whole assembly. He says re'eh, he doesn't say re'u, he says re'eh, but then he uses lifnechem, before you. I set, look, behold, re'eh, I set before you, and then he uses the plural. Lifnechem, before you is in the plural. So you think, well, what's he doing? He speaks in the singular, and in the same sense he's speaking in the plural. It's hard to translate that into English because English has lost that kind of inflection in the language, unless we say you and then use, for example. But many languages have retained it, but English has lost that. But what's happening, each person now will see that the blessing and the curse will affect the whole community. It's like one for all and all for one, if you like. You know, it's the one for all and all for one. Our Jewish brothers and sisters call it arevut. It's mutual responsibility. It's each person realises that they're part of the community and they're responsible for the community, and the community is responsible for each individual. That's what's happening. But what's happening also is, see, Moses, when he said to the Lord, look, I'm not a man of words. He wasn't, people say he's just trying to get out, he was just trying to get out of doing what God wanted him to do. But then you read further on that Moses was the most humble man on the earth. And for me, I think he was being humble, because his words are amazing, and the way he uses words is amazing. And he was being truly humble. Look, Lord, I'm not a man of words. He is. And what he's done here, Moses, for me, and we've spoken before about how he uses words with such love and wisdom to convey a message without the hearer feeling guilt or shame, yet but still being able to grow and to learn from what he's saying. He edifies people in a loving way with skillful use of his words. And I believe what he's done here as well. Because I think what he's reminding the whole assembly of the Shema. He's basically projecting the notion of the Shema upon the whole assembly. He says you singular and then you plural in the same sentence. You know, not in other words, you're nothing without your neighbour. You must think of your neighbour all the time. You live for your neighbour. You know, it's the community. It's beautiful. So I think he's basically conveying the notion of the Shema on them by his skillful words, use of words. And he does this mostly without the hearer even realising that he's doing this. He's phrased it in such a way as to convey one message and yet introduce another, you know. Like I could be sitting in this room and I could say to Sister Sonia, any chance of shutting that window, please? You know, she might think, oh, no, sorry, you know, was I supposed to have shut it before? But if I say something like, is it me or is it cold in here? Sonia will automatically go and shut the window. You know, there's ways of using language in a loving way. You know what I mean? You don't have to say, can you shut that window, please? Can't you feel that draft? Or you could say, is it me or is it cold in here? And Sonia will automatically just shut the window. And I think this is what Moses does regularly. He uses words skillfully and lovingly in the way that the hearer is not undermined or feels he's not condescending to them. They don't feel like, you know. And that's what I believe he's done here, actually. His astute of use of these words here, you singular and you plural, for me, it automatically invokes within the assembly's minds of the Shema. You know, it's just done it in a skillful way. Because we are a collective whole. We're made up of individuals, aren't we? You know, but we're individual parts of the body of Christ. You know, we're all one body. It's beautiful. We're living stones that make up the house of God. And Moses shows how God does love us dearly and regards us as equally precious to the whole body. And vice versa. Okay, moving on to verse 27 and 28 here. The blessing if you obey the commandments, the curse if you do not obey the commandments. And you think, well, yeah, that's fairly straightforward. I think, but in my life, I've seen bad people prospering, you know, and I've seen bad things happen to good people. You know, we can all cite examples of it. You say, well, bad things happen to good people, and bad people seem to prosper and be able to do what they want. You know, and you say, well, I don't see, where's the blessing and the curse here? We must always see the bigger picture. Must see how God sees. This is what Ra is all about. To see how he sees. And also remember that really, whatever happens in this life anyway, it's just a blink of an eye. It's just literally a drop in the ocean, you know. There's eternity, you know. So you might think, oh, well, I've gone through a rough deal here, and I'm doing the commands, but I'm getting a rough end of the deal here. It's just for a moment. It's for a moment, and now God sees and he knows, and you will have your reward. It may not always be here and now, you know. There's eternity is a long time, you know. So we can't just judge everything on this small sojourn that we have here on earth as it is, you know. Revelation 21. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. So yeah, it does happen in this life, but when the rain falls, it falls on every rooftop. You know, when the rain falls, it falls on every man's rooftop. That's how life is. But just remember that there's an eternal reward. So when we say, well, bad things happen to good people, you know, and good things happen to bad people, it's momentary. It truly is momentary. It's a blink of the eye. Whatever negatives we apparently see as negatives that we encounter in this life will be swallowed up in eternity in his love. Romans 8, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or even famine or nakedness or sword? And yet people still may ask, well, where's the blessing in this life? Well, one of the problems there is a lot of people in the world don't realise truly what a real blessing is. You know, for out there in the world, a blessing is to have lots of money, a big bank account, a couple of nice cars on the go, yeah, a big house, a few holidays here and there, you know. That's not a blessing. They're looking at the visible, tangible things, you know. These are temporary. Permanence is the unseen. You know, we seek the heavenly, the permanent. It's the unseen. So where is the blessing in this life? Well, it's in verse 27. The blessing, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God. That's the blessing. The blessing is obedience to our God's commands. Our God's commands are a blessing. That's the blessing. That is the blessing. Our God's commands are a blessing. They're not a hindrance or something to push you back or to keep you down. These are a blessing. These are life-giving. The blessing in life is to obey the commandments of the Lord our God. That is the blessing. Life is totally meaningless unless we live to bring glory to God. And we are so blessed to be invited to follow him. That is the blessing. For everyone online, if you don't know, believe me, God's commandments are a blessing. And to bring glory to him, that's the only meaning and purpose in life. Seek him first, all things are added. It's the truth. Seek him first and all things are added. To wake up in the morning, I say it repeatedly, to wake up in the morning is a blessing. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. If you wake up in the morning, we sang the song before, God's new recreation every day. You might as well woke up like Adam and Eve that day, today, this morning. It's a new world. Every day is a new world. It's recreation. That's a blessing to wake up in the morning. Not having a big bank account or a couple of cars on the go. That's here today and gone tomorrow. That's nothing, mate. Come on. That's nothing. It's nice if you have them, as long as you don't become your idols. There's nothing wrong with them. It's the seeking and the loving of it. To put anything above God. It's basically idolatry. Waking up in the morning is a blessing. A happy marriage is a blessing. A child, a grandchild is a blessing. To help another person, to help someone, that's a blessing. Not just for them, but for you. A friend is a blessing. A good friend is a blessing. A godly fellowship is a blessing. Let's not take this for granted. A godly fellowship is a blessing. You know, I haven't been on holiday for about 19 years. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I love holidays as well, you know. But there's things more important. And I do love going on holidays. I've forgotten what it's like, but I do love going on holiday. But there's things more important and just so much more. They just refresh the soul, you know. You get to the stage in life where I have, and not because I'm a good person, I just seek our Lord and he just fills you with his blessings. And now if I have a cold drink on a hot day, that's a beautiful blessing. And I really mean it. or a warm drink on a cold tray. It's the simple things, it truly is. Our senses are a blessing. You know, we only had to eat and then let it go for our bodies, to physical bodies to operate. We don't need taste. We don't need taste. We know what we can eat and what we can't eat. But, you know, we've got a brain, we can work out, well, that's edible, that isn't. But we don't need taste. That's a blessing. He's blessed us with taste. Oh, wow, Lord, that's gorgeous. How'd you make that, Father? How do you make that, Lord? How do you make that? You know, it's the simple things. We've got to count our blessings, you know. Really say, wow, God's creation is just mind-blowingly beautiful. It's perfect. And to be in it is a blessing. His commandments are the blessings. Our senses are the blessings. To see is a blessing. And we are to see, to rei, how God wants to bless us. Rei, how God does bless us. Keep his commandments and watch how he blesses you. His commands are our blessing. You know, people say, well, how's your week been? And you say, oh, the car broke down, or I had a bit of a stomach ache. What about, like, well, the grandchild was over for a few hours, you know, my car got fixed. Not like, oh, the car broke down, my car got fixed, you know. If we count our blessings, I promise you now, you'll soon run out of fingers and toes to count them. You'll run out of fingers and toes. And that's the truth. God truly wants to bless his children. That's what he wants to do. And he says, look, I'm going to give you the free choice, the blessing or the curse. It's your choice, you know. He's given us free will. And when we think about it, even like a divine curse, in its fullness is actually a blessing, you know. So, I must have done something wrong, my car won't start. Well, guess what? There was an accident waiting 10 minutes down the road, right on your route. That's a simple analogy, but in a deeper way of thinking and a meditation, even a divine curse can actually be a blessing. It's often beyond our comprehension, and it's therefore we perceive it as a curse. But when you realise that actually a divine curse, you see it as like, actually it works out that God will make this into a blessing. There's a blessing in this somehow, you know. And when we see it like that, we don't get angry with God. So why does he do this? Why do things happen in a way that's not right? Maybe pain and negativity and suffering and bad things, maybe they exist in order to provide us with free will. Maybe it exists to provide us with the free will to reject it. We reject evil and its curse. Let's choose him and his way and his blessings. We have free will. It's a choice. Love is a choice. It's a voluntary act. To follow his commandments is a choice. God couldn't. People say, well, bad things happen in the world. Why does your God let that happen? God didn't make it happen. We did. Bad things happen because of us. He gave us free will. He could have made us like robots. He said, right, I'm going to make these. I'm going to wire them so that they just love me and save me. That's not love, is it? You know? I could have met Michelle and said, right, I'm going to hypnotise her and make her love me. Do you know? It's the same principle. Yeah. I'll just, when she falls asleep, I'll just hypnotise her and make her love me. You know? And all along I'm thinking, she doesn't love me. I've just tweaked it that way. She doesn't actually love me. I've just tweaked it that way. God could, exactly. God could have manipulated it where like he just makes us like robots that we just worship him and go, yeah, we love you, you're great. That's not love, is it? That's not love. Out of love, he gave us free will. You see, that's love. He gave us free will to choose. Well, do you want that or do you want that? You know, I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to wire you so you're going to go that way. I love you that much. I'll let you choose. That's love. And true love is only achieved through free will. And that's why he gives us choices. Okay, verse 29 and 30 here. Mount Gerizim and Ebal. Now this Gerizim, where the blessings were pronounced, at the time apparently, it was full of fountains and orchards. Gerizim had fountains and orchards. And yet on Mount Ebal, that was dry, like stones and rocks and arid. And what's amazing is, we all saw the image, they're practically in the same place. You know, one's fruitful and one's barren. You know, they're both in the same soil, the same atmosphere, the same weather. And yet one's fruitful and the other one's barren. It symbolises our spiritual walk in life, you know. Do you want to go Gerizim or do you want to Ebal? Which path do we choose, you know? We go to school alongside others. We can grow up in the same house, in the same home as others, our siblings, whatever. Same place, same soil, same weather. And yet somehow one will be fruitful and another one will be barren, you know. One will choose the blessings and another one will not. Thank God that your eyes are open to see. You can ra. But let us never give up on trying to open the eyes of others so that they too may see. You know. And if you know anyone, your friends or family whose eyes are closed, a good prayer is Psalm 34. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. You know, they don't have to even be aware that you're praying that for them, by the way. You don't have to grab them and say, look, and say that prayer over them. And maybe embarrass them a little. You say your prayers when you're with our Lord, you know. His eyes are all on his children, you know. And it might take a year, it might take 50 years. You might be gone by the time it happens. You know, I pray for my children. I might not even be here by the time it takes fruit. I don't know. God is past, present and future. Our time is like this, you know. So never give up. Have the faith and pray for others so that they may see also. By the way, that Psalm 34, oh, taste and see. It's as if like your tongue can see, you know, taste and see. It's a funny phrase that, isn't it? But just bear that in mind, because I might sort of bring that back into the portion a bit. The tongue, taste and see, so that as if the tongue is seeing. Okay, verse 30. Beside the terebinth trees of Moreh. Now this place here, as I said at the outset, is a significant place in scriptures. Abraham, when Abraham's name still was Abraham, he was in the same location here, Shechem, hundreds of years previously, and God promised this land to his descendants. We read that in Genesis 12. This place is an amazing place. It's known for teachers. It's known for mighty biblical figures, including Melchizedek. I'll show you something here. Melchizedek. This is Melech. Melech, which means king. Melch is Melech. And this is Zedek. Zedek. Melech is king. And this the yod here, in this context, is like, it denotes ownership or possession. So that king becomes my king. You see what I mean? So, Melechi Zedek. My king, and Zedek is righteousness. And the is in Hebrew is just assumed. You don't have to say that, it's assumed. My king, righteousness. My king is righteousness. For example, if you wanted to say Moses is a prophet, you just say Moses, prophet. You wouldn't have to say there is, okay? So just remember that. Yeah, so this Shechem, it is an amazing strategic place, known for teachers, for mighty major biblical figures, including Melchizedek, and Abraham, Moses, Jacob, Yeshua himself. They were all here. Yeshua was here with the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. So this, beside the terebinth trees of Moreh, Now, as I said, this is where Abram was back in Genesis. This terebinth, in some translations, it may say oak tree. It's basically, they didn't really know what to call it. It's basically a huge tree. It's massive, you know, like oaks are big. They call it a terebinth or an oak, but it's basically, but symbolically, a big tree it represents a protagonist, like a major character. You know, it's a major character biblically. And then this other word, marei, the terebinth of marei. This word marei and the word Torah both are derivatives of the word yara. Okay? So, this is a place of huge trees, of teachers and the Torah. That's what that one sentence is saying. The terebinths of marei. It's like these big biblical figures who teach the Torah. Okay? That can only be seen in the Hebrew, by the way, but that's the truth of the matter. That's not contrived. That's literally how it is. This region around Shechem and Ebal and Gerizim in biblical history is connected to major biblical figures, connected to instruction and connected to the teaching of the Torah. And the greatest teacher, of course, is our Lord, Yeshua. And Yeshua gives us an understanding of what's taking place here with the people split between Gerizim and Ebal, half over here, half over there. What's actually going on? Well, let's go to Matthew 25 for a little insight. And so what's actually happened here in Shechem between Ebal and Gerizim? When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him. And he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick, or in prison, or come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me." Then he will say to those on the left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me in. Naked, you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison, you didn't visit me." Then they also will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked, or sick or in prison, and didn't minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to the one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." So, Ebal and Gerizim, Matthew 5. What are we seeing here? What's the link? Well, for me, it's reminiscent of what we read in the Gospels. You get the wheat and the chaff. The wheat goes into the kingdom, the chaff doesn't. Yeshua on the cross, the criminals either side of him. One goes into the kingdom with him, one doesn't. One on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right. Luke 16, remember Luke 16, Lazarus and the rich man? Remember he said, "Send Lazarus to dip his finger in cold water and put it on my tongue. These flames." Remember the rich man was in torment. And yet there was a chasm, there was a gulf, just like we see in the image. That chasm, there was a gulf and between them, and one got in to the kingdom and one didn't. And if you remember the beginning of this parsha, the blessings were in obeying God's commands. Here's the key to all these here, these examples: Matthew 25, Ebal, Gerizim, what we read in the Gospels, the chaff, the wheat, the criminals outside of Yeshua, Lazarus and the rich man. the beginning of this parsha, obey God's commands, there's the blessings, and Yeshua shows us that the commands can be summed up as love God, love your neighbour as yourself. Love God, love your neighbour as yourself. This is where the blessings are. And here in Matthew we see that those who enter the kingdom are those who treat their neighbour with charity, with righteousness, with love. And in doing so they are loving God and their neighbour. Because God is our neighbour. God is our neighbour. Yeshua practically says it himself in verse 35. What you did for these, your neighbour, you did it for me. And what you didn't do for these, your neighbour, you didn't do for me. You saying I'm your neighbour? Love God, love your neighbour. This chapter in Matthew relates directly to our parsha today. We're blessed when we do the commands of God. And the commands of God bless us. We're nearly come to a break. Verse 31. You will cross over the Jordan. Cross over the Jordan. This word cross over in Hebrew is abar. Abar. It's where we get the word Ibri from. Ibri is a derivative of abar, which means Hebrew. Ibri is Hebrew, a Hebrew. So this abar, when you cross over, it's abar, and it can mean cross over, to pass through, etc. The same word also means alienated. Now the covenant is given to those who cross over and become alienated. We cross over and become alienated. We're in the world, but we're not of it. We're strangers, we're sojourners. We're a peculiar people. The am segular. We're in this world, we're not of it. We've crossed over, we're alienated. And in Genesis 15, you don't have to go there, I'll read it out. You remember when God was cutting a deal with Abraham, well, he was still Abraham at the time. And he said, cut this animal here, cut that one there, walk through, etc. He was cutting a deal with him. I'll read it out. Genesis 15. It came to pass when the sun went down and it was dark, that behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch that passed between, there's that word abar, those pieces, the pieces of the dead animals. On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your descendants I have given this land. And that's where we're looking at now. Abraham, the first Hebrew, the first Ibri, obeys God's command to leave his home and cross over abar. God blesses Abraham by passing through. God passed through. God did the abar. He passed through the sacrificial transaction, remember? And secured the covenant with him, with Abraham and his descendants. That's where we are now. We who've crossed over, we have become Hebrews. We've crossed over and we are now Hebrews because we've answered the call of our God who called us out of darkness and into his light, from curses into blessings. Through Yeshua, we're grafted into the covenants of the promises with Israel, and therefore we are also Hebrews, the same as our forefather Abraham. Chapter 12. It says here in verses 3 and 4, and you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods, destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things. And there's times when I'm thinking, yeah, I'm gonna go out and do it. And there's been times in my life where I thought, I'm gonna do that. I want to do that. And to be honest, within me, I do still want to do it. But I know, well, I can't. And really, we're supposed to do this. We achieve this spiritually. We can't literally go out and do that now. We do it in our lives. All this is is or has been in our lives, in our own lives. It's basically anything that we put before God or in place of God. Yeah. You know, the love of money, the love of power, material goods, working on the Sabbath, any selfish ambition over the will of God, We're supposed to destroy, dispossess, break, burn, cut down all this from our lives. You know, you can't go out and change the world. How do you change the world? You change yourself. That's how you change the world. You change yourself. And that's the only way it can be done. So these we're supposed to destroy, smash, burn, break down in our own lives. That's what this is. That's what we do. That's what we do. And then it says something here, what we do not do. And what do we not do? We don't do what the nations do. Do not worship God according to the design and the patterns out there. These adopted pagan rituals and these worship centres they've got going on. Our God gives us in his book of life clear instructions of how we draw near to him, and that's not through the traditions or patterns of the world out there. Leviticus 20, and you shall not walk in the statutes of the nation which I am casting out before you, for they commit all these things, and therefore I abhor them. Strong language. So that's what we do not do. We do not do what the nations do. Verse 5 here. Seek the place. Now this comes up quite a lot in the scriptures. In here it was ha-makom, the place, ha-makom. And it's repeated also throughout this parsha. But he's saying, seek the place where the Lord your God chooses. You'll go there. And you're thinking, well, does this mean, is this Jerusalem? Or is it Shiloh? Is it Gibeon? Because it moved, you know, it was, so well, where is this, the place? And you say, well, yeah, it is Jerusalem, but what if you can't get to Jerusalem? Or what if you do get to Jerusalem, but your spirit's wrong, your walk is wrong, you know? So there must be more to it. So for me, yeah, the place is Jerusalem, obviously it is, but it's also us, it's within ourselves again. It's within ourselves. John 4:20, and this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is Yeshua with the Samaritan at Jacob's well, which is Shechem, between Gerizim and Ebal again. This is a strategic place in scriptures, and here's Yeshua at the well, Jacob's well, with the Samaritan lady. John 4 verse 20, our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you don't know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. Ha-makom, ha-makom. In the Bible, it's not so much a name for God, but it's a reference of his presence. See it right through scriptures, and again in this parsha, ha-makom, the place, the place, the place. Some people say, yeah, well, it's one of God's names. It's not actually his name. It represents his presence. And remember a few parshas back in Parsha Gerizim, where we saw how when you read the Hebrew text, the implication was God's practically saying to us, you will be where I am because you are the place where I will dwell. You remember that? You will be where I am because you are the place where I will dwell. That's ha-makom. That's the place. Our bodies are temples. And this is why we must guard what comes into the temple through the eye when we ra anything. Guard what we ra. And just as God is our dwelling place, our bodies are temples for our God. We also see that in 2 Corinthians, for you are the temple of the living God. Yeah, there's more there, but I think we'll take a break. Yeah, shalom, shalom. Okay, so we're going to continue now with Pasha, Re, and we're up to chapter 13.
Yep.
Which version is it?
The New King James.
Yeah, excellent. So our brother Grant is going to read chapter 13. Take it away, bro. Take your time.
Brother.
Beautiful. Give thanks.
If there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass, of which he spoke to you, saying, let us go after other gods, which you have not known, and let us serve them. You shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him, and keep his commandments and obey his voice. You shall serve him and hold fast to him. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken in order to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of bondage, to entice you away in which the Lord your God commanded you to walk. So you shall put away the evil from your midst. If your brother, the son of your mother, your son or your daughter, the wife of your bosom, or your friend who is as your own soul, secretly entices you, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the gods of the people which are all around you, near to you or far off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. You shall not consent to him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spur him or conceal him, but you shall surely kill him. Your hand shall be first against him, to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he has sought to entice you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. So all Israel shall hear and fear, and not do again, and again not do such wickedness as this among you. If you hear someone in one of the cities which the Lord your God gives to you to dwell in, saying, corrupt men have gone out from among you to entice the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods which you have not known, then you shall surely inquire, search out, ask diligently. And if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination was committed among you, you shall surely strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it, and all that is in it and its livestock with the edge of the sword. And you shall gather all its plunder into the middle of the street, and completely burn with fire the city and all its plunder for the Lord your God. It shall be a heap forever, it shall not be built again. So none of the accursed things shall remain in your hand, that the Lord may turn from his fierceness of his anger, and show you mercy. Have compassion on you, and multiply you, just as he swore to your fathers, because you have listened to the voice of the Lord your God, to keep his commandments, which I command you today, to do right in the eyes of the Lord your God.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, so the end of chapter 12, the previous chapter, it was looking at false gods and how nothing in the Bible, nothing should be added or taken away from the Bible. And it continues straight into here with about false prophets. It's all the same thing, basically. False gods, false prophets, adding or taking away from the scriptures. It's all in the same brackets as far as our Lord's concerned, and that's why it just flows in from the previous chapter into this one. That Grant is just so well read. Thanks, bro. So we look back again there at verses 1 to 4 here in chapter 13. The false prophets giving signs and wonders, etc. Let us go after other gods, let us serve them. There's nothing new under the sun. This is nothing new. 'Twas ever thus. There's always been false prophets, demons and deceit. Nothing new under the sun. And they take many forms, and they spew out their message in many ways. It won't necessarily be a friendly looking man with a nice voice, a face, and speaking in a nice voice with gestures like this, the way politicians do. It won't be as blatant as that, although it can come in that form. But usually they're disguised as something desirable, something novel, something wonderful. It's good for you, you know. It's always disguised these false prophets and false prophecy in general, it can be overt, you know, but usually it's subtle and subliminal, and usually it's so gradual that it just happens over time, and it appears normal and even acceptable. You know, it's like a drip, drip, drip effect, and then before you realise it, you're under a lot of water, and it's murky waters. These false prophets and their messages in general are all over the internet and the telly, across the radio, they're on supermarket speakers, right through the music industry, they're in cinemas, they're even in schools where kids go. These false prophets smear their deceit everywhere, in magazines, billboards in the street, they're on walls, even on cable boxes. You know, where the electrical substations and these BT telecoms unit things.
The green box in the street.
The green box in the street. They're even on them. It's like some kind of legalised graffiti. This spew that they vomit out, it's even plastered all over buses and taxis. There's no escape. Wherever we go, whatever we hear, wherever we look, whatever we ra'ah, it's there. The mission of these false prophets and false prophecy in general, we spoke about this on the break, is to deceive God's people into turning away from God, usually unawares. You know, they do it in such a way you're not even aware. Well, no, I do love me, God, and you're serving something else. Usually unawares. These false prophets are deceivers, and they are agents of Hasatan. And we read in Revelation how Hasatan and his cronies will perform all kinds of signs in order to deceive. Yeshua himself warns us in Matthew 24, take heed that no one deceives you. No one deceives you. For many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. You can't deceive many unless you're good at deceiving. And these are professional deceivers. But God's penalty for this is severe and it's just. The false prophets shall be put to death in a lake of fire. But these false prophets, ultimately, they exist as a test for us. It says so here in verse 3. You shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dream of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you. So ultimately they are there as a test for us. So what's our response? How do we pass that test? Once again, it's in the very next verse. Most of the time in scriptures you see something and you wonder what the answer is here, and it's usually right there under your nose. We're shown in verse 3 that it's a test for us. In verse 4 we're shown how to pass that test. We follow God, we fear God, we shema Him, we serve Him, we cling to Him. That's how we do it. He gives us the answer right there. And it's the same as it ever was. That was always been the way. He is our shield, our fortress. He's our strong tower. He is our saviour. What's in us is greater than what's out in the world. If we're with Him and He's with us, we feel nothing. Yeah. We'll see it all around us and it's sickening, and it's like a bombardment, an incessant bombardment of nonsense and nastiness, and it's actually demonic, and we know where it's coming from, we know what the agendas are, and it's sneaky and it's subtle and it's perverse, and we're thinking, Lord, please just take this away from me. Just run to Him. He's our shield. There's the answer. Cling to Him, shema Him, fear Him, serve Him, cling to Him. That's the answer. It's always been our answer. He won't leave us. He will not leave us. He will not forsake us. We may turn from Him, but His hand is always there. We're supposed to go to Him. Verses 6 to 11 here. Now it's a bit... This is quite, some people say, controversial. Some people say, well, where's the apologetics for this? But what we read here you shall put to death these people, even family members, etc. And you shall be the first to put your hand on them and kill them, etc. There's actually no record in Scripture of this actually taking place, by the way. And it's a deterrent, and it's also it's for the purpose of conveying the gravity of such conduct. God wants to spell out how serious this is and how serious he takes it. And he says, if anyone messes around, you bump them off, you take them out. Obviously, we're not here to bump people off. I see this as a deterrent, and as I said, there's no record of this actually people having to resort to this in Scriptures. I often cite the example of my own childhood. One time I sneaked out the bedroom window in the middle of the morning. It was about 2-3 in the morning, and because me and my friend used to think we were Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, and we used to meet up in the early hours. I used to sneak out the window, meet up in the early hours, and go on escapades. Just not innocent, really, nothing bad. You know, it was just fun being out at that time when we weren't supposed to be. You know, it's dark and all that, and just running around, just being stupid. And one time, I've come back, and I've come round the back gate, and I've climbed up the pipe because I was like a monkey. You know. I've climbed up the pipe, and my brother's he's locked the window. And I'm thinking, oh no. So I'm thinking, how do I knock loud enough or shout loud enough that my brother can hear, but my dad doesn't, right? And I'm thinking, up there. And he's like, no, I'm sick of you doing this. And I'm thinking, oh, no way, right? So what have I had to do? I had my door key, but the stairs creaked, right? So that's why I used to just sneak out the window and come back in the window. But he shut it thinking, you go, no. And I thought, you horrible. Why, you know? So I've gone round the front, let myself in, and I'm sneaking up the stairs, and like the third one and the fifth one and the stairs. So next minute, there's me dad at the top, and he goes, if I ever catch you doing blah, blah, blah again, I'll give you the belt, right? He never gave me the belt. He never once used the belt, and he used to threaten me with it. But he never once. I can't even recall him ever hitting me, smacking me or anything. But just if he said it to you, because my dad was like, you know, he's a tough looking dude, you know, and I know that like he took no nonsense when he was out and about, growing up, etc. And if he pointed the finger at you and said, you do that again, you're getting the belt. You thought, oh, I'm never going to do that again. And I never did it again. You know, and I look back and I think, he won the belt, he loves me, you know. He loved me, but he's thinking, you could have got in trouble out there, son. But he didn't say that, he said, I'll belt you, do that again. I never did it again. And this is what I see here, where our Lord says, look, I'm telling you now, if you see that, you take them out. I'm not having this. And you think, wow. And there's no record of it ever happening. To me, it's like a deterrent, like to say, I'm telling you, I mean it. And that's how I see it as, it's a deterrent.
Later on in the scriptures, we see the children of Israel confront the witches of Endor, and in that case, they actually let them go. So that's an instance where there was witches, and they could have easily fell underneath this ban. Whether that was right or wrong, but we do see an element of mercy being shown, even though they was in full authority to destroy them. So I'd agree with you. Not that I've found anyway. There's no single case of that happening. We see Israel going to war with different nations, which we know was giant offspring.
Demonic
giant DNA. You know, the Rephites and other nations. But in regards to as what we know as a human, you know, I could be wrong, but I'll be in agreement with you. And we see it the opposite way, mercy shown.
Even when we went into nations to take them out, like to dispossess them, again, this is usually from the sages and the midrashes that they have. Usually they'd surround them on three sides. They wouldn't completely surround them. And they'd even send messengers in first. And they would even send messengers in first to say, look, we're coming in, you can either give up or get out, but we're coming in. you know. So they had an opportunity. I'm not talking about the demonic offspring, Amalekites, etc., Nephilim. I'm talking about normal nations, not God-fearing, but people. And they surround them on three sides, so there was mercy given there. They had an option to come out. You don't have to fight us, you can just get off. You know, so like Jack said, there's always an element of mercy there. And that's what I think this is here. It's a deterrent, you know. And
put it this way, if it said, oh, you know, God would be like, oh, I'm kind of okay with that. What does that say about our God?
Exactly.
So he has to be the polar opposite and say, this will lead to death.
Yes, and ultimately it does lead to death. That's exactly what it is, brother. So it's the same as in the previous chapter where we were talking about smashing and burning and cutting down altars, etc. It's in the spiritual sense now. We can't be going out doing this to people. It's in the spiritual sense, same as the beginning of the last chapter. For example, we put to death or we kill the old self.
Yeah.
You know, we do it within ourselves. We put to death the old self. You know, this is a spiritual endeavour. But in life we know that there are occasions that when we know people, family and friends, and they're not doing the Torah and they know that we are, you know, and they'll invite you for oh well, just come to such and such. You say, no, that's on my Sabbath, I won't be doing that. You know, my family don't even ring me on a Sabbath anymore. They know now. But I know people do suffer with this, and I have in the past. Oh, come such and such, oh come on, it's such and such birthday, or it's the anniversary of so and so, or it's a family get together, and saying, look, I'm doing the Sabbath, it's God first. Or they say, like, look, we know you don't do Christmas, but just come round for lunch. All the family's there. You know, it's almost like the guilt trip ticket, you know. You're thinking, look, so we know what happens. And it does happen. But what it is now, if we obey our God and his commands over the requests even of family members and friends who don't observe commands, we're putting to death that notion. Yeah. Do you get me? Yeah. That will never manifest. We're putting a manifestation to death. That's not going to happen. Whether it's your mother, your brother, your sister, your dad, whoever, it's not happening. I'm putting the idea to death. You know, that's what we can put to death. We put to death the notion, the manifestation, the temptation. We kill it off. Yeah. And also we must realise that truly our family is our family in the Lord, in Yeshua. And those who remain in him, that's our family. And we read this in Mark, don't we? Mark 3, for example, and other places. Yeshua himself says, for whoever does the will of God is my brother and my sister and my mother. So we purge or we put to death false teachings and attempts at leading us astray. That's what we put to death. False teachings and attempts that lead us astray by demonstrating our obedience to doing the truth. That's how we do it. You want to say something, bro?
Yeah, I was conflicted with this week. I was actually, some of you may know, I was potentially going to go down to it wasn't a wedding, it was a wedding sort of after party.
Celebration, this week. Yeah.
And I was speaking to Emma about it. And Emma pulled me up on it straight away. She was like, well, have you considered it's the Sabbath? And, you know, I know it's a family member, and I know it's you know, you're going there to support the family, but have you considered this other angle too? You know, and I prayed about it, I spoke to my mum, and yeah, ultimately in my head I was like, well, I'm going to go when the sun's set and I'm just going to go down there and spend time with the Father. But that's not really like a sacred assembly, you know, it's not a sacred gathering, and I'm not telling anyone what to do here. This is just my own personal conviction that today is a set apart day, and I don't want to make it common where people are drinking, people are you know, getting off the face and yeah, having a good time, but it's not worshipping our Father. So it did play on my mind all this week. I was really tested because I was like, I don't see my family often. You know, I didn't get to go to Greece for the actual wedding. This is a little party for those who couldn't go. And ultimately, we've got to put our flag in you know, with Yah and say, look, I'm sorry, I really would like to come. Let me send you a card. Let me maybe come up some other time. But today, it's a set apart day. It's a sacred gathering, and I've got a duty, not just in terms of this, but a duty to represent Yah. and his character, and it does come like that, doesn't it? It comes with your family members, oh, come on, we haven't seen you in so long. But what does that say to them if you're not putting your pole in the ground? And it used to always happen with work. They knew I'd have the Sabbath off, and every now and again they would just, what about this Saturday? Come on, I'll give you an extra. And it's like, no. And it's got to be the same way with family. And I think that's beautiful how you put that's what you put to death.
Yeah. The notion, the temptation, the manifestation.
The manifestation. That
truly,
was the word.
Oh, bless you. And you will be blessed, brother. You took the right step. Also, what I noted is, see, Jack here now he's a God-fearing man. Jack's a God-fearing man. But did you notice he took his counsel from Emma and his mum? You know, behind every good man is a wonderful woman. It's beautiful, you know.
No, and it was good counsel because it slipped my mind, you know, and my mum didn't end up going down. And of course there was other reasons why I didn't as well, but that was it. You've got to put God first, haven't you?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
We're all very glad that we did.
Yeah. We were all blessed for it, weren't we?
Can I just say something there? As soon as if you like do say what you were going to do there, the next time something comes along, it'll be like, what, you done that last time? You know what I mean? So you just tripping yourself up. You know what I mean? If you done that, so that's it.
And there's a gentle. That's a good shout, that, bro. You know, it's give them an inch, they'll take a yard. And there's a gentle way of saying it, because you can just go, is it in scripture? And really bash it, but you can lightly put it down. It's how you say it as well. Yeah. You know, it's something Emma and my mum have been teaching me too. Yeah. But it's that, isn't it? It's how you say it.
Yeah, Moses is the chief at that, you know. He's mentioned that before, how he uses words to show someone something, but in a loving way, where he's not condemning anyone or making them feel guilt or shame, you know. So bless you, brother, yeah.
Just
that is good.
Just quickly, as we know, the opposer is very wily, and he'll keep using the same tricks because he knows that it works, and he's very subtle. He'll use those things. Perhaps the family is not aware of it being used by the Satan. But they are. It's him. It's a way of trying to get that thin end of the wedge in.
The thin end of the wedge. Yeah. You open the door to the thin end of the wedge is right. It's only thin, and then it just goes up and out and out. Yeah. Thank you, people. Yeah, beautiful. We're on chapter 14. I'm not actually going to read through chapter 14. Basically, it's this chapter covers the kosher dietary laws, and it concludes with the tithing. And we've covered the matter of tithing many times, actually, between us here at Almond House in different parishes. But a brief word on the dietary laws. It's funny, really, because it's known as the kosher dietary laws, but the word kosher is not even mentioned. It's in fact, I think it's only mentioned 3 times in the Holy Scriptures. It means something. Kosher itself means something that's clean, pure, right, fitting, and proper. It can even mean skillful. If we look at Proverbs 31 about the godly woman, when she puts her hand to the spindle and the distaff, that's where you see this word kosher. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's just some kind of skill involved, you know. But what we've got to realise here is that along with the clean and unclean food guidelines, what's equally important for us to remember is that there are many ways that we can ingest things, you know. There are many ways, not solely through your mouth, you know. We've got to guard what our ears consume. We just spoke about this earlier. We've got to guard what our eyes consume, what we whatever we put into our bodies, our temples, it must be clean. It must be pure, proper and fitting according to our God. You know, so it's not just food. So we'll move swiftly on to chapter 15. At the end of every 7 years, he shall grant a release of debts. And this is the form of the release. Every creditor who has lent anything to his neighbour shall release it. He shall not require it of his neighbour or his brother, because it is the Lord's. It is called the Lord's release. Of a foreigner you may require it, but you shall give up your claim to what is owed by your brother. except when there may be no poor among you. For the Lord will greatly bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Only if you carefully obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe with care all these commandments which I command you today. For the Lord your God will bless you just as he promised you. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. You shall reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you. If there is among you a poor man of your brethren within any of the gates in your land, which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother, but you shall open your hand wide to him, and willingly lend him sufficient for his need, whatever he needs. Beware lest there be a wicked thought in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is at hand, and your eye be evil against your poor brother, and you give him nothing, and he cry out to the Lord against you, and it becomes sin among you. You shall surely give to him, and your heart should not be grieved when you give to him. For this thing, the Lord your God will bless you in all your works and in all to which you put your hand. For the poor will never cease from the land. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor and needy in your land. If your brother, a Hebrew man or Hebrew woman, is sold to you and serves you 6 years, then in the 7th year you shall let him go free from you. And when you send him away free from you, you shall not let him go away empty-handed. You shall supply him liberally from your flock, from your threshing floor, and from your winepress. From what the Lord your God has blessed you with, you shall give to him. You should remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore I command you this thing today. And if it happens that he says to you, I will not go away from you, because he loves you and your house, since he prospers with you, then you shall take an awl and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. Also to your female servant you shall do likewise. It shall not seem hard to you when you send him away free from you, for he has been worth a double hired servant in serving you 6 years. Then the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. All the firstborn males that come from your herd and your flock you shall sanctify to the Lord your God. You shall do no work with the firstborn of your herd, nor shear the firstborn of your flock. You and your household shall eat it before the Lord your God year by year in the place which the Lord chooses. But if there is a defect in it, if it is lame or blind, or has any serious defect, you shall not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You may eat it within your gates. The unclean and clean person alike may eat it, as if it were a gazelle or a deer. Only you shall not eat its blood. You shall pour it on the ground like water. 15:4, verse 4. This looks like an apparent discrepancy here in the Bible. You know, non-biblical lovers will quick to jump on things like this. Well, it says this here, and then over there it says that. Your Bible contradicts itself. Well, there's an apparent discrepancy here in verse 4. There will be no poor among you. I've quoted that from the BSB, the Brain Study Bible, because that just says it better. There will be no poor among you. And then further on in verse 11 it says, for there will never cease to be poor in the land. Also the BSB version. So it says in verse 4, there will be no poor among you. 7 verses later it says, for there will never cease to be poor in the land. And these two verses obviously seem to contradict each other, but there's a simple explanation, you know, and the Bible is always true, so there has to be. When we perform the will of God, there will be needy among others, not among us. If, however, you do not perform the will of God, there will be needy among you. See the subtle difference there? Yeah. And that's what God's showing. But people will be quick to pounce on these verses saying, the Bible says this and then it says that. No, it doesn't. It says the same thing. God is truth, and that's the end of the matter. There's another thing here with our Jewish brothers and sisters. I'd like to point this out, that there's a connection between the words peace and pay. The root of each is the 3 letters, Shin, Lamed and Mem. And they come up with the phrase, if it is not paid for, there is no peace. Because that shin lamed mem is shalom, as we know. One cannot be shalom if one is in debt. But we know that the Prince of Peace, the Sar Shalom, is Yeshua, and he cancels all debts after seven millennia, after 7 days. And this Shemitah year, the Shemitah literally means to drop, to cancel, to release. That's what it means. Now have a little look back here at verses 7 to 11. This is the Shema, it's the application of the Shema. It's basically being charitable and generous, acting in a righteous way to those in need, you know. And we read earlier there how Yeshua said that what you do for the least of these, etc., you know. It's always about loving your neighbour as yourself, and in effect you are loving God. And as we read in the book of 1 John, you can't love God and hate your brother, you know. You must show love to our neighbours. And once again, the sages have a saying here: the poor man does more for the giver than the giver does for the poor man. You're thinking, hang on. No, but the giver is giving the poor man sustenance, you know. But they say, well, no, because if you give a poor man £2 or so, say, and he's really on his, at the end of his tether in his life, you give him £2 and he's got enough now to go and buy a loaf of bread. He gets the bread, he eats, he stays alive, and then he just gets gradually better. You've actually saved that man's life. You've saved someone's life through your charity, your righteousness, giving to the needy. And so the sages say that the poor man does more for the giver than the giver does for the poor man. You say, well, how can that work out? But if you read in verse 10 here, for this thing, i.e. giving generously to the needy, the Lord your God will bless you in all your works and in all to which you put your hand. For this thing, the Lord your God will bless you in all your works and in all to which you put your hand. Just because you give generously to the needy. But really, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. Yeshua gave his life to us. We needed him, you know. He gave to us his life. He laid down his life for his friends. He says, you treat your neighbour, you love your neighbour as you love yourself. You remember the stranger, you love the stranger. It's all through. This is the Shema we're reading here. And quoting our Jewish brothers and sisters once again, they really highly value alms and charity, you know. They view very highly. They view it as life-saving and life-preserving, which it is, as I've just said in that example. You can literally save someone's life. These acts of kindness and righteousness save life and preserve life, and God rewards this, as we've just read there. He who gives to the poor man seems to be doing the poor man a favour, but actually you're receiving the gift of God's blessing from the poor man. And a person who refuses to give to the poor forgets that he himself depends on the generosity of God. If we refuse to be generous when we see others in need, why should God help us when we are in need? You know, it's a circle. God won't forgive us if we don't forgive others. It's written. The measure by which you judge somebody, that's the measure that will be judged against you. You know, we reap what we sow. We're told, love your neighbour as yourself, not just your friends and your family. That, you know, I was going to say that's easy, but usually that's the hardest. But he's saying, look, love your neighbour as yourself, whoever they are, including the stranger, including the needy, including the poor. When Paul the apostle was given permission from the other apostles to take the gospel out to the Gentiles, they gave him one obligation. They asked him to teach the Gentiles to remember the poor. That's an actual quote from Galatians 2:10. And when we give to the poor, we should do so with a joyful heart. The Torah says itself, your heart should not be grieved when you give to him. We read that in verse 10, chapter 15 here. 2 Corinthians 9. So let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. I want to continue this theme of generosity, of being a cheerful giver, of charity and righteousness. Remember we spoke about Melchizedek earlier, and how his name spells out, my king is righteousness, remember? This Zedek at the end here is righteousness. These three letters, Zedek, Zadi, Dalet, Kuf, and here, Zadik, practically the same word, is righteous. And here, Zedachah is charity. Now they all have this letter Zadik, right? This letter Zadik has become to represent in Hebrew, the Hebrew language. That letter itself has come to represent righteousness. You know, we see the letter Aleph, and I can point to God because it means the ox, the strong one, the mighty one. The letter Beit, for example, means the home or the son, because it stands next to the father, the Aleph, etc. Each letter has certain qualities and meanings. Well, that letter Zadik represents righteousness. And as we're speaking here about righteousness, generosity, being a cheerful giver, being charitable, etc., I want to quote something here from Exodus 30. You don't have to go there, I'll read it out. It's in Exodus 30:13. It's when God told Moses to take a census of the people by procuring a half shekel from everybody. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And it says in verse 30 in Exodus 30, this is what everyone among those who are numbered shall give, half a shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary. This was for the ransom of souls. It was a foreshadowing of Yeshua actually, because he paid the price for our souls. That's what was going on at the time. And this half shekel each, the rich wouldn't pay any more, the poor wouldn't pay any less, right? In the eyes of God, how God sees, how God, we're all equal. And we also understand that we're only whole. We're only whole when we include our neighbour. My half, your half, we become whole. You know, two halves equal one. Mm-hmm. There's some wonderful lessons in the whole event that was going on there. But back to that verse, this is what everyone among those who are numbered shall give, half a shekel. Where it says those who are numbered, once again, that's that verb, abah in the Hebrew. It means those who cross over. He's talking about the Hebrews, those who cross over out of the world and into his light, out of the darkness into God's Torah. But back to this theme of generosity, charity, being a cheerful giver, etc. Which we just read about in chapter 15 here in our parsha. It's love, it's the Shema. We see it over and over again. And we see it once more in this parsha. But this word for half, the half shekel, is machetzit. Okay, the word is machetzit. And we know that this middle letter, the Zadik, represents righteousness. We've seen that in the name of Melchizedek, for instance. And in those other words, Zedachah, Zedek, Zadik. That letter in the middle represents righteousness and charity. Okay? Now, look at the letters closest to this letter, meaning righteousness. The letters that are closest to it. You've got the chet and the yod. Closest to this letter means righteousness, yeah? It says chai. Those two letters together is a word saying chai, and it means living, alive, to live. So you've got righteousness here, living, alive, to live, chai. Now see the two letters furthest away from the Zadik. It's the mem and the tav. Mem and tav. That spells mot, it means dead. Our charity, our righteousness brings life closer and death further away. That's the power of the Hebrew language. That's the power of the Hebrew language. Such is the beauty and the power of the Hebrew language. I mean, his language, hallelujah. Okay, we're up to the final chapter here, chapter 16. and it goes up to verse 17, 1 to 17. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover to the Lord your God. For in the month of Abib the Lord your God brought you out of Egypt by night. Therefore you shall sacrifice the Passover to the Lord your God from the flock and the herd in the place where the Lord chooses to put his name. You shall eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread with it, that is, the bread of affliction. For you came out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day in which you came out of the land of Egypt all the days of your life. And no leaven shall be seen among you in all your territory for 7 days, nor shall any of the meat which you sacrifice the first day at twilight remain overnight until morning. You may not sacrifice the Passover with any of your gates which the Lord your God gives you, but at the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at twilight, at the going down of the sun, at the time you came out of Egypt. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which the Lord your God chooses, and in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a sacred assembly to the Lord your God. You shall do no work on it. You shall count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count the 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. Then you shall keep the feast of weeks to the Lord your God with a tribute of a freewill offering from your hand, which you shall give as the Lord your God blesses you. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you and your son and your daughter, your male servants and your female servants, the Levite who is within your gates, the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are among you, at the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and you shall be careful to observe these statutes. You shall observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days, when you have gathered from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And you shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son and your daughter, your male servants and your female servant, and the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless and the widow, who are within your gates. 7 days you shall keep a sacred feast to the Lord your God, in the place which the Lord chooses, because the Lord your God will bless you in all your produce, and in all the work of your hands, so that you surely rejoice. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place which he chooses, at the feast of unleavened bread, at the feast of weeks, and at the feast of tabernacles. And they shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God, which he has given you. Beautiful, beautiful conclusion to the parsha. But you notice how the previous chapter ends with tithing, and then this leads into the cancelling of debts, which leads into generosity, which leads into lending and giving. It's all connected. It's all a thread. It's all connected. It's beautiful links. And really, if you cannot tithe to God, how can you give to people? If you can't tithe to God, how are you going to give to people? The widow, the orphan, the poor, it's written here. And remember what we just read in the previous chapter, how God rewards righteousness and charity. And remember also in Matthew 25, and the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Speaking of tithing, we do not put God to the test. We don't put God to the test. But in the matter of tithing, he shows us that we can. He actually says, you can test me on this. It's the only time he says it. Yeah. It's the only time he says it. We can test him on the matter of tithing. And I'm sure there's many testimonies. I know Michelle has one. I've had one. I've declared it previously. You think, I really need to pay the gas bill or whatever. And, I can't afford to tithe. No, you can't afford to pay the gas. Pay the tithe. Do the tithe. Test me in this, he says, and he will reward you. He will bless you.
It's Malachi chapter 3 verse 8. Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, in what way have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out for you such a blessing, that there will be no room even enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, so that he will not destroy the fruit of your ground, nor shall the vine fail to bear fruit for you in the field, says the Lord of hosts. And all the nations will call you blessed, for you will be a delightful land, says the Lord of hosts. I remember our sister Vivi, Mark's wife, who's in Mexico. She gave a brilliant word on this one.
I remember it, yeah.
She was like, well, you know, if your washing machine is going, or your car's always needing repairs, or if things keep breaking in your house, consider this.
Yeah.
And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, because the devourer will make your fridge go and all these different things.
Breaking things.
You're like, God, what's going on?
Yeah,
And he's saying here, you know, I will rebuke the devourer and I will pour out the heaven. Try me in it. So it's a cure, I think, for if you do believe the devourer is coming and you know, taken away, stealing.
Thank you, bro. I'm glad you mentioned the fact where you said, in what have we robbed you? The saints of the Lord, in what way have we robbed you? And he's saying, well, the tithe, you're not giving the tithe. And really, he only asked for 10%. We should be giving him 90%. Really, it's all his. What we have, is he gives us.
Yeah.
He gives us what we have. And for us to just get away with just giving 10%, that's... You see, it's all God's, and he's only asking for 10% back. You know, he wants to see your commitment, basically. But if you think of the Garden of Eden, if we're saying it's all God's, he's just saying, look, this is mine. This 10%, that's mine. I'm going to let you have the rest. If you think back to the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, when he gave them all creation, he said, there you go and have a great time. And he said, but see that tree there, just don't, all that's yours. But that tree there, don't touch that. And he went and took of it, you know. That was, he said, no, I'll give you all that. I'm just saying, keep that back for me. But they went and took of it. You know, to me, that was like stealing from God, and that's like the tithing for me. Yeah. He's saying, look, I'll give you all that. I'm only asking just to keep that bit back for me. Yeah. And he didn't, and I see that as the same.
Something came to mind when you were speaking from Haggai 1:6. You've so much and bring in little. You eat but have not enough. You drink but you're not filled with drink. You clothe you, but there's none more. He that earns wages to put into a bag with holes.
Wow.
The devourer. Yeah, verse 4 here. No leaven shall be seen among you in all your charity for 7 days. No leaven for 7 days. An amazing number, this 7. But we're here for 7 days, aren't we? On earth. The 6 days, you know, the 6 millennia. And then the 1 day in the millennial reign. That's 7 days. So in other words, this 11 for 7 days, we have no false doctrine all our days on earth. We don't have false doctrine all our days on earth. The whole 7 days, as no false prophets. As not doing as the nations do. For all our days. That's what that simple verse says there. And we're told again here in verse 8. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a sacred assembly to the Lord your God. So that's our life, our whole life. No false doctrine. Verse 16. These are the Moedim. And really, the Moedim, in general, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and it reveals itself more and more each year. You know, it's a never-ending cycle, and it's God's Moedim is so glorious. It truly is, and we ought to give him thanks for his Moedim. And these false prophets that say, well, you know, that's how it used to be, and you can do it like this now, or just, well, you can still do that, but do this as well, because it's all for Jesus. No, it's God our Lord says, whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it or take away from it. And even mixture, that's adding. Yeah. If you're going to say, yeah, well, yeah, no, I do the Torah, where's it? To go to the Sabbath, but like, you know, my auntie's having a little Easter bunny hunt, and it's only chocolate eggs. It's for the kids. It's all right. It's for the kids. No, that's the worst thing you can say. But hell, leave the kids out of it, man. You know, leave the kids out of it. Why are you corrupting them? There is no mixture. We don't do mixture. That's adding. And we're told over and over not to add, not to take it away. If you're mixing something, you're adding something. Look not to the left or the right. Keep our focus on him. Look to Yeshua. Behold, Ra, the cross and what it means. Yeshua opens the eyes of the blind, and he's opened our eyes so we can Ra. Hallelujah. Now finally, I want to touch on something here. Through scriptures and through the Torah portion cycle, we read and we learn about Shema, 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 over and over and over. And here now, in this passage, we have Ra. It's Re from Ra, seeing. I like to refer us now to something, the most amazing instance of Ra that there is in the Bible. The most amazing instance of seeing that we see in the Bible, for me personally. I think it's unrivaled. We spoke of the senses earlier, didn't we? Re, Ra, it's sight. It's one of the senses. Has anyone ever heard of something called synesthesia?
No.
Yeah, one person, okay.
No.
No, okay. Thanks, Mason. Mason hasn't. Most people haven't. Ellie may have. Well, that represents actually how many people have experienced it, because it's quite a rare thing. It's a natural phenomenon. I'll describe what it is. Synesthesia is when you. Well, if you break the word down, it's two words. It's seen and it's aesthesia. It means together perceive. In other words, perceive together. I.e., your senses are merged or crossed. You know, remember earlier when we said, taste and see that the Lord is good? Yeah. And I said, well, how can your tongue see? Remember earlier on in the passage? Taste and see that the Lord is good. Well, how can the tongue see? That's a glimmer of synesthesia of what it means. Now, I remember not long ago, it was a few years ago, and I've had it started, and I've had it since, but very, very rarely. Slight episodes of this, where I'll smell something, and in my mind I get a colour. Like I'll smell something and I've seen the colour purple.
Like lavender. Might give you the thoughts of purple.
Yeah, no, things that you, like a roast potatoes or something that you wouldn't associate with the colour purple,
okay.
You know.
Oh, so opposite.
Well, not exactly opposite, but where my senses, I'm smelling something but seeing a colour.
Right.
So my senses now are merging and crossing over. You know, I smelled something and saw the colour purple, or I smelled something else and saw the colour green, and I'm thinking, that's a bit strange. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm strange. I just got on with it.
We are.
But I learned, thank you. Well, I would not want to be normal in a mad world.
No, yeah.
Please don't try to be normal in a mad world. We are peculiar people, thank God.
Yeah.
So I smell something and see a colour, smell something and see another colour. I thought, wow, that's strange. That's okay, I'm having that, it's all right. And then I come across this term, synesthesia, and I've looked it up, and actually it's in the Bible. There are examples of it in the Bible. Not as blatant ones as that, but there are examples in the Bible. Like earlier, taste and see that the Lord is good. You know, you combine in two, you take and see something, you know. Ephesians 1, this is the Berean Study Bible version. I ask that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, so your heart can see, you know. Doesn't the heart just beat and pump blood?
Solomon's asked for a hearing heart.
I'm coming to that one. Thank you, sister. Thank you. The Spirit is moving. The Spirit is moving. Revelation 5, bowls of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. So this smoke is words now. 2 Corinthians 2. Now thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. The fragrance of his knowledge. See, wow, okay. Job 6. My soul refuses to touch them. My soul refuses to touch them. You think, well, how can a soul doesn't have tactile properties? Well, okay, the Bible says it does. There's many examples, there's lots. There's another one, Ecclesiastes 1:16. I communed with my heart. Right? So a heart can see, a heart can talk. And apparently a heart can hear. 1 Kings 3:9, and this is the Aramaic Bible in plain English version. Give to your, this is Solomon, petitioning God. And he didn't ask for wisdom. Solomon said, give to your servant a hearing heart. A heart that hears. Actually, it's Shema. He said to God, give your servant a heart that will Shema. So a heart that hears, it sees, it speaks, it hears now. You think, wow, you know. And then here's my favourite example in the Bible. Exodus 20:18. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the shofar, the trumpet. How can you see thunderings, lightnings and the noise of the trumpet? They saw it. Actually, where it says thunderings, it's, for me, that's the King James version, but it's voices. If you check the Hebrew, it's voices. It's the plural for kol, kolot. So depending on which version, you'll see thunders, voices or sounds. But either way, for me it's voices, but it really doesn't matter because they saw them. Yeah. How do you see voices? How do you see thunder? How do you see the sound of the shofar? And it's written. All the people saw it. They ra'ah. They saw voices. And I think, wow, they saw voices. So I was checking this up and you couldn't really get an image for it. You try getting an image for it. The closest I got was like, they're all at Sinai. You see the backs of everyone's heads. There's the mountain ablaze. And there's all these letters in midair. You know, and there are some schools of thought that say there was actually letters visible in the air. But I'm not with that school of thought. And I think it's much deeper than that. So from these examples that I just read out, it seems that something exists in us, you know, because people do. We've got it in the Bible. I've experienced it slightly, but I've read about people who get it in a high dosage of this synesthesia. There seems that something exists in us that could be traces of a perception far superior and more advanced and complex than anything we're accustomed to nowadays in this age. You know, there's something within us that we've lost to a great degree. That's what I'm saying. Has anyone ever seen, you know, like on a sunny day, like rainbows of colours like bouncing off the glass on a window or something? Has anyone seen it? I've seen it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Or off a raindrop, with the colours to a raindrop, like a prism, you know. On a cloud, of course. Or even I used to have a beveled mirror on the living room wall, and the door was slightly open, and the sun had bounced off the leaves on the tree to the door and off the bevel on the mirror, and it was just like, I was like, wow. You know, it was like, it wasn't an epiphany, but it was like just beautiful. I thought, where's that coming from? And I couldn't see it. You can't see it. But I thought, well, hang on, but I can see these beautiful colours down the side of my mirror. I thought, so it is real. But I'm looking and I think, I can't see it, but it's really real because I can see it now in the mirror. So it makes you think. So we've all had little experiences like that. And you know, on a sunny day, you're sitting in the garden and it's lovely. You can even see it in your eyelashes, you know. Yeah. You can see beautiful colours cascading up and down your eyelashes. You had it. So if these things are real, I'll show you one day, Mason. These things are real. And if we see it, it's real. Even though you can't really capture, where's that coming, how's that happening? It's not an hallucination. These beautiful colours that we've experienced, these beautiful colours, they're all around us. They're all around us. And for me, it's evocative of what we read about the New Jerusalem. Revelation 21. I'll read it out. 21 verses 19 onwards. The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. 12 gates with 12 pearls. Each individual gate was 1 pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. Now, when you're reading those jewels out, the precious stones, the 12 of them, you're thinking, yeah, okay. But I remember hearing something a few years ago, and by the grace of our God, Andy mentioned it at the break, that jewels, in a certain light, we're talking about judging the book of a cover, but it transposed into something else as well. You can't always judge it by its cover. Oh, it looks alright, but it's just a red, and that's just a green. In a certain light, these jewels look so glorious, you just can't really take it on board.
It's pure light, isn't it?
It's pure light. It's pure light. It's pure. You've seen it, sis. It just you look at it. Some say that was what was on the high priest's ephod. And when you see it in its glory, you're like, wow. But imagine like a city like that, and the pavements, etc. And we're sitting there thinking, I can see the sunlight on my eyelashes, or there it is bouncing off the window. We've seen nothing, man. But this is real, and it's there. I often wonder, I wonder if certain creatures see like this all the time. Between here and the sky or the sun, it's all there. You think, I wonder if certain creatures are just seeing like rainbows all the time, everywhere. Like that peacock. That there's just a flurry of colours, beautiful. So, I don't think our imagination can truly grasp the sheer beauty of the scene of the New Jerusalem that's going to come. And in 1 Corinthians 2 we read, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him." These colours, this beauty, it's always there. It's always there. If you can catch it one time on your eyelashes or on a window or in the mirror, or if it rains up, you think, oh wow, where's that? Wow, look at that. Where's that come from? It's always there. We just get glimpses now and again. See what I mean? We just get glimpses. I believe that certain creatures do perceive it, and I also believe that once upon a time we did. Not just glimpses, but fully. We used to be able to fully this, our God's amazingly beautiful handiwork. You get glimpses now. I think this synesthesia and what happened at Sinai is a glimpse of glory, even like a glimpse of heaven, whereby, in fact, it may even be a glimpse of like what's in store for us when we are in our incorruptible bodies, where we're unhindered by this dimension and by physics and flesh, etc. Imagine the glory of heaven if we could just experience the entire electromagnetic spectrum, where we can see sounds and hear colours. I read in an article, there was a man called Dan Temmett in the synesthesia article, a man called Dan Temmett, and he could memorise pi to over 22,000 decimal points.
Wow.
Right? Decimal places. He could learn a new language in a week. Right? And he could memorise hundreds of books. All because he could access these synthetic abilities. He could put like, sounds would become visible. Each letter would have its own colour, etc. Like you could write the letter P and it'd be yellow. But if you change it to the letter R, like a little line there, it become green, for example. These are examples. But obviously most people can't do this, but nonetheless it exists within all of us in some form, to some degree. That's what I'm saying. And I believe that Adam and Eve could not only speak to the animals, that they also spoke to every plant. This is a similar kind of thing here. A crossover of boundaries, senses, etc. And I believe that Adam and Eve would probably memorize each piece of information that they receive, just like a computer does now. because they could combine colour and sound and sight and taste and touch.
Sound is frequency. We have a set frequency which we can hear. Light is a frequency, but it's out of our range of hearing, but we can see it.
There you go.
So they're linked together. It's all on frequency.
Different rates of vibration.
Red, infrared, and ultraviolet are opposite frequencies in the spectrum.
On the spectrum.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, brother. So I believe even the Garden of Eden was much more than what we imagine. And I believe that we all once had this capability, but it's largely being lost due to our fallen state, basically. So this synesthesia, that I call it, because of the experience of Sinai, which we call Sinai in Hebrew, I call it synesthesia. Synesthesia. But
I can agree to that.
But I mean, what happened there? Going back to Sinai, what happened there? Some people claim that when God spoke, he simultaneously spoke in 70 different languages. It's feasible. It's easy for God, but I don't think that's what happened. Others say that there was visible letters in midair. That's feasible. I don't believe it though. Other people believe that they actually saw voices refracting through a prism. I probably veer more towards that for me. It's probably nearer to the truth, but I don't exactly know what was going on at Sinai. But what I would say, that what happened there was a very profound example of this synesthesia, because it's a rare thing even in the world today. But on that day, it happened to everyone. It was a collective experience and it was full scale. It was a mind-boggling example of the synesthesia. It was a soul-trembling experience of synesthesia. Remember in Hebrews 12 where Moses says, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I am exceedingly afraid and trembling. That was Moses. Remember the people said, whoa, we're going to die. Moses, you speak to him, just tell us what he said. We're going to die. It must have just when something's happened that where all the senses at once received this message, and it's like, oh, Moses. They probably just uttered that, Moses, you know.
You know why they told him to fast for 3 days?
Yeah. Or otherwise, bring your spare nappies. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
But this is Moses saying, look, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I am exceedingly afraid and trembling. Remember, Moses had been at the top, at the summit, alone with God. So there's nothing for him to, you know what I mean? So this experience must have just like, whoa, went right through them like, I don't know, like a 1,000-volt bolt or something. You know, something that you can't really explain. It's one of my favourite scenes in the scriptures. It really is. I mean, what a scene. They were able to see sounds and hear sights, basically. For me, they could probably smell and touch them too, you know. I think all the senses were just like on overload. God's revelation at Sinai was registered by all their senses simultaneously, I believe, as a single, undivided perception. As I say, it was a collective, full-scale, mind-boggling, soul-trembling experience of synesthesia, even for Moses. Talk about, there's a saying there, you think you know it, but when you feel it, you know it. You know, who feels it knows it. Who feels it knows it, Lord. You know, they felt it. I'm going to end this parsha with a verse from Genesis. This parsha, Re'eh, from the root word Ra, one of our senses to see. Genesis 1:31. Then God saw Ra. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. Beautiful. That's Parsha Re'eh. Have a blessed week. Vaya con Dios. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.